Welcome back everyone to Silverstone, the final race of this Silverstone 500 weekend, and it falls to Ginetta to bring the curtain down here at a sunny Silverstone. The Ginetta GT Academy drivers for their second race of the weekend. They've had to sit around and wait for quite a while, honestly, because they were last out yesterday in pretty wet conditions, and now they're here again well over 24 hours later for their second appearance of the weekend. But it should be another absolute belter. Yesterday's race was certainly not short on action. Nick White beat Ravi Ramid to the race victory by eventually 3.3 seconds, but it was a fascinating battle between the two of them, really, because Ramid was probably the quicker in those conditions, but he kept making mistakes, and every time he'd get onto the tail of Nick White, he'd have a moment, he'd drop back again, and Nick White was given a relatively trouble-free run to the race victory. So an interesting battle between the two of them, and another interesting battle between the two of them in prospect here this afternoon. And they'll also have company towards the front from the likes of Ed Akers and John Kearney. Ed Akers always an exciting driver to watch, as was the case yesterday. And he starts the orange machine from third on the grid. The Century Motorsport driver looking to try and claim a race victory if he can. In the championship standings going into this weekend, well, Nick White looking good for the championship, it must be said. Ravi Ramid of the rookie drivers, no longer a rookie driver, it's Matt Shaw who this year is heading the rookie class. Ravi Ramid was front runner in that category a year ago, but the cars are all identical. It's just the drivers who are split into those two classes for the more or less experienced driver. And we tend to see some of the really quick rookies at the front of the field fighting for race victories all the time, and Matt Shaw was indeed a contender for a podium finish yesterday, and he will start this one from 5th on the grid because it's second fastest lap times from qualifying that will give us the grid for this second race of the weekend. So waiting for them to be released then from the grid, which does now happen. Green flag is waved on the starting gantry, and the drivers can try and get some heat into the tyres and have a look at what a dry Silverstone circuit looks like. We haven't really had a lot of dry running this weekend, be it in testing, qualifying or race one. So actually this is a bit of a voyage into the unknown for the drivers. They don't really know what the track is going to behave like in these sort of conditions. But as they head out of Copse towards Maggots and Beckett, they'll get a good view of a dry and warm Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. Nick White then on pole alongside Ravi Ramid, the Raceway Motorsport driver, ahead of Century Motorsport's Top Gun, and then we reverse that for row 2. Century's Ed Akers ahead of Raceway's John Kearney, making up the second row of the grid. Matt Shaw starts 5th, the first of the rookies on the grid, like I said. Mackenzie Walker for company in 6th on the grid, and then row 4 shared by Emma Tomlinson, and Richard Just coming in 8th on the grid. Then row number 5 for Thomas Shelley and Mark Ellman, another one of the Century Motorsport brigade there, with Paul Livesey lining up 11th ahead of Amy Tomlinson, one of the 3 Tomlinsons on the grid. Charlotte Lowe and Lucy Tomlinson together on row 7. Row 8 for Ben Cook and Phil McGarty, whilst Harry Cook will bring up the rear of a 17-car Ginetta GT Academy grid. Well, first 2 championship campaigns have been dominated by drivers, whereas this year it does look as though we're going to have a bit more competition. A number of drivers gaining an experience in these cars, people like Ed Akers, for example, and Nick White, both showing the best form that they've ever shown in GT Academy before. But Ravi Ramid up there as well, definitely a title contender. It'll be interesting to see whether his race pace is as quick today in the dry as it was yesterday in the wet, because there's no doubt about it, he was faster than Nick White. As a little bit of, well, I'm not quite sure what that's all about from Ed Akers. He's inventing his own dance moves, I think, as he comes through Abbey on the green flag lap. But yeah, the pace yesterday from Ravi Ramid was indisputable. He'd set the fastest lap at 2:35.1, which was a full 1.1 seconds quicker than the best lap out of Nick White. So he clearly was quick, but as I said, just a little bit accident prone ultimately. And the battle between those two in the wet was an interesting one. Today, though, in the dry, we've seen already in the Ginetta Junior race, for example, a very different race out of those drivers today than we saw yesterday. And perhaps that will be the same sort of story now for the GT Academy runners. Wait and see what's going to happen then as the pack makes its way around Brooklands in front of the grandstand. We still have a healthy smattering of spectators filling them, even at this late stage in the day. Enjoying what is a beautifully warm afternoon, actually. When you're in the sun, it feels like a lovely summer's day, which hopefully will be the next time the Ginetta Championships descend upon Silverstone for the G-Fest event at the beginning of June, where it is a celebration of all things Ginetta. 6 races over the course of 2 days, 3 days actually, I think, of racing competition. So get yourself down to Silverstone for that, for some good weather and hopefully some good racing, which I'm also hopeful we'll be able to put on for you now then as the Ginetta GT Academy drivers come to the grid. Nick White with Ravi Ramid for company on row number 1. Who's going to get that start? We do see quite often, it's interesting here at Silverstone, because the racing line is on driver's left, that's where they put pole position, because they think that the grippier side of the road is better to have than the dirtier inside line. But actually we've seen a number of good starts today from the inside of row 1, so I wonder whether maybe that's going to prove to be the case again here for Ravi Ramid. He is the white, blue and green car starting second. The white, blue and orange on pole is Nick White, and then the all-orange of Ed Akers starting third, ahead of John Kearney's bright fluorescent yellow and black machine, which is on the inside of row number 2. 25 minutes then on the clock. Final racing action of the weekend here at Silverstone gets underway, and Ed Akers goes nowhere initially. In fact, quite a few drivers on the outside row there, just not really awake for the start of the race, but they do now get going. And you're right on board briefly there with Ed Akers as he tries to make up a little bit of ground. Out of Copse Corner go a pair of the Tomlinsons there. That was Emma Tomlinson just ahead of Amy as they drop into Maggots and Beckett, and it is Ramid that leads the way. So again, second on the grid was the place to be, and Ravi Ramid's got the early advantage through Maggots and Beckett's, then White second, Kearney in third, and down to fourth for Ed Akers after that slightly tardy start. Number 99 there is Richard just battling away with Thomas Shelley. They both run wide and lose a position to another one of the cars that was coming through. Mackenzie Walker there, the red and white car, and one car sliding off towards the barriers. Now, did it make the barriers? It disappears behind the bridge and has not yet reappeared. It's number 88, Mark Ellman, off the road. He hasn't made the barrier, and actually he's not really made it into the gravel trap either, so should be able to continue as long as he doesn't drive himself into the gravel and get completely stuck. We'll have to wait and see if he gets going again. Mackenzie Walker here trying to find a way past Ed Akers as they drop into the club complex. As again, on slightly cold tyres, drivers tending to make a couple of little mistakes. Oh, and speaking of which, another spin. Oh, and that is Emma Tomlinson. It was the highest placed of the 3 Tomlinsons, but Emma off the track at club, pointing the wrong way. Is hopefully not going to stall the car because they don't like being refired always. Hot racing engines. She can get going once again. On board now with Matt Shaw, leading rookie driver in yesterday's race and indeed within the championship. Putting a really good performance actually in those wet conditions. He's running 5th at the moment, 6th at the moment, sorry, as they come through the loop, just ahead of Thomas Shelley. Ramy leading then, White second, 3rd Kearney, 4th Akers, 5th Walker, 6th Shaw, 7th Shelley. That's the lead group if you like. And then Richard just in 8th position, Livesey 9th, and top 10 completed now by Amy Tomlinson as Thomas Shelley tries to get up the inside of Matt Shaw, who is a comfortable leader once again in that rookies class, because Richard just is second in the class and he's down in 8th, but several seconds behind this squabbling pair. So through the right-hander at Luffield, out wide goes Shaw, and Thomas Shelley in the end makes a pretty easy move up the inside line, so Matt Shaw does now fall down into 7th place in the overall running order. Across the line they go then. Ramid already 1.3 seconds to the good, and as I said, I'm interested to see whether or not he's got the race pace today that he showed yesterday. Because if he has, that might be the last we see of Ravi Ramid, with mistakes, in theory, less likely in these conditions as well. So up towards the Maggots Beckett sequence they go once again. So Ramid then 1.3 seconds up. There is Shelley, Matt Shaw still behind. Lots of gravel on the road, which tells me that Mark Ellman did dig himself out of the gravel at the top of the Hanger Straight, because I'm guessing that's where that gravel came from. He's not yet made it round to the line. and in fact hasn't registered any sector time, so I think he might have actually got himself out of the gravel but then pulled off to the side of the road just slightly further on. So Mark Elman at least got himself into a place of safety. I mean, that's fairly considerate of him, even if he wasn't going any further in the race, so maybe there was some damage done. And there he is. He's gone just past the bridge on the Hanger Straight, pulled out of the way, and walks away in frustration, but at least no need for a safety car. The race can continue. Purple middle, second sector there for Nick White, so he was 2/10 slower than Ramid in Sector 1. He's about 3/10 quicker than him in Sector 2, so that's a net gain so far on this lap for the second place man. He's also 2 miles an hour faster in the speed trap at the end of the Sir Lewis Hamilton straight. So there, Ed Akers tries to get himself back into third place. He just didn't go, did he, at the start, Ed Akers? But he wasn't the only one. It seemed like the whole left-hand side of the grid, right as we looked at it, didn't really react all that quickly to the lights. That was Matt Shaw running very wide through Village, and, dropping ever further away from Thomas Shelley now. He was 4.7 seconds up on Richard just at the start of the lap, and he's lapping quite a bit quicker than him already on this one. Mackenzie Walker now on the tail of Ed Akers, this for 4th position. Orange number 20 of Ed Akers. Works his way through Luffield Corner in 4th place. Started the lap 3/4 of a second behind John Kearney, but I'd say that gap has extended slightly now. Let's see what the lead gap is though. Fastest lap set by Ramid and not quite matched by Nick White, but he's within 1/10 of a second of him. And they're both half a second or more quicker than the rest of the pack behind. So Ramid and White continuing to distance themselves out in front. Kearney 3rd, Akers 4th, Walker 5th. That's the battle that we're watching go side by side, in fact. Into Maggots and Beckett. Oh, Akers on the outside, Walker on the inside. That now becomes the outside for the left-hander, the inside for the right, but it doesn't matter about that because he's gone through already. So Mackenzie Walker up into 4th position. And that was a really, really committed bit of driving there for the pair of them. Good, clean racing. Very difficult to go side by side through Maggots and Beckett's. So they managed it nicely there, and Mackenzie Walker finds himself up 1 more position now. Can he chase after John Kearney? Go on to the podium. Mackenzie Walker, who after yesterday's race, well, actually didn't race with us at the park, did Mackenzie? So this is his first appearance in the championship. Notched up a reasonable 5th place, but he'd like to get himself onto the podium. Raced with us last year, I seem to recall, Mackenzie. So Steto Racing driver, not new to the car, but wasn't able to get out over Easter weekend. But Nick White claimed 2 of the 3 wins. Ramy did win race number 3 before White went to 1 again yesterday. So it's 4-1 at the moment in the win stakes. Big slide there for Akers through Village. He's hustling on as he tries to reel in the Mackenzie Walker car in front of him again. Those little moments, those little slides can very easily turn into a full-blown spin in these GT Academy cars that are particularly tricky to drive. They run on Michelin road tyres, the Ford V6 engine underneath the hood, not the V8 that the G56 races with in things like British GT and indeed the Ginetta GT Championship. GT Academy is sort of entry level of Ginetta racing if you don't want to do it through the GT5 challenge, or if you're not a junior, then the GT Academy, the place to go. Ford V6 engine producing about 270 brake horsepower and a top speed of 140. They weigh only 1,100 kilos as well, so they're pretty nippy things, but they don't have a huge amount in the way of driver aids, and because they're on road tyres, it's essentially a mini GT4 car, but on road tyres, and that's what makes them such a handful. That's why we do see a number of drivers getting it wrong from time to time. Black and white warning flag for Nick White for exceeding track limits, so that's a sign that he's pushing on, even though he's losing time. Lost about 6/10 actually on the previous lap to Ravi Ramyid, who was set at 2 minutes 23.569. Now that is about 1.1 seconds off the lap record, which is set here last year by Leo Caravasoli. 2:22.4, so not fully down to that pace, but like I said, this is really the first dry running, full dry running that they've had all weekend long, so they're still sort of bedding themselves in. I'm sure we will see lap times improve as we get further on into the race. The great thing about running on road tyres, they don't wear in quite the same way that a racing slick would. Now Nick White is starting to retaliate a bit now against Rammeed. Quicker in the first sector by 2/10, quicker in the second sector by 3/10, so half a second gained already. There is Matt Shaw, your rookie leader, not having quite as strong a run in the overall rankings today as he did yesterday, but it's certainly not a bad run at all. He sits in 7th place overall, and more importantly, 8.2 seconds clear of Richard Just, who's got Felix Livesey right behind him. And Tomlinson completing the top 10 is the third of the rookies. Third sector time's about to come in for the leaders, and yeah, that half a second that Nick White had gained through the first half of the lap, he's already lost in sector 3 by going 4/10 slower than Rammeed, so certain parts of the track Rammeed does seem to have an advantage. White just not quite able to live with it. Matt Shaw, they're bringing us some fantastic onboard pictures through Brooklands, rides the curbs, and that really difficult final turn at Luffield, where you'd think you just want to hug that inside curb the whole way, but actually your exit speed is so important that it's quicker often to run wide through the middle, back to the late apex, carry that speed down past the pits. That's exactly what we saw there from Matt Shaw. In the end, near identical lap times for our top two. A fraction slower was Nick White. The gap remains 1.9 seconds. Nick White, though, on that previous lap was about 6/10 quicker than John Kearney, who had been reeling him in a bit on the previous lap. Kearney had a slow lap, a 24.3, about half a second off his previous best. If John Kearney could keep running at his personal best pace, you have a chance still. Challenging Nick White for second place. Kearney had no podium finishes at Alton Park. Got himself a 4th place finish as his best result, which was in the first of the 3 races at Alton. A 5th in race 3 and a 6th in race 2, so he was in and around the top half dozen, but having a much better run here at Silverstone is Kearney. Finished yesterday's race in 6th place again, but this one has panned out much better, and in fact he's just no, excuse me, sorry, that's Nick White putting in a purple second sector and Mackenzie Walker a purple first sector. So again, Nick White in the first half of the lap has an answer for Ravi Rammeed. It's this part of the lap where Nick White on previous occasions has lost a bit of ground, but let's see. I reckon maybe he's had a better go at it this time through Village in the loop, then doesn't seem to accelerate off the loop very well. And that's probably still somewhere around 1.9 seconds. Let's see. He's gained so far on this lap about 3/10. And in sector 3, he, well, gains another half a tenth. So that was more like it. It was a personal best in the 3rd sector and not far away at all from the outright fastest sector 3 time set by Ravi Rammeed. So Nick White is pushing hard in the number 57 car. Out of Luffield corner. Let's compare the lap times then. The gap was 1.962. Rammeed crosses the timing line now, does 2:23.5, and a 2:23.1 is a new fastest lap for Nick White. So Nick White is now starting to look a bit more menacing in this race. 1.5 seconds of the gap, 4/10 gained that time. Looked for a while like it would be Mackenzie Walker setting the fastest lap of the race, but 23.3 is all that he has done. See that he is caught now, John Kearney as well, so 3rd place could be about to become a pretty entertaining battle as well. So out onto the back straight they go. There is Nick White. You can get a great view of those Michelin road tyres that he's on. Silky smooth action on the steering wheel from Nick as well, as he put in his, and indeed the race's, best lap that time around. Brilliant shots, as always, there through Luffield corner. Now, this for 3rd position, John Kearney. Well, actually, it doesn't matter, because he's just been given a 5-second track limits penalty, but he might be about to lose 3rd place anyway on the road to Mackenzie Walker, who comes up to challenge down towards the club complex. Not quite able to do it, though. John Kearney holds him off, but a 5-second penalty for John. 25 car will then lose that debut podium finish of the year, it seems, unless something would happen to Mackenzie Walker, but even then he's not 5 seconds ahead of Ed Akers in fourth, who we really haven't seen much out of in this race, and that surprises me. I really thought Ed Akers, to be honest, I had him tipped as a championship contender at the start of the season, but second place in the season opening race in Alton Park was as good as it's been for him so far. And just hasn't really shown the front-running pace I expected out of him in this one. Oh, big moment there for Kearney, big wobble coming out of the loop. And Mackenzie Walker looks now to try and take full advantage of that, to carry the speed down the Wellington straight and perhaps have a go into the braking zone at Brooklands. Let's see, he's up alongside, he's on the inside line, sorry, is Mackenzie Walker. And is he going to be able to go through? Yes, he is. So Mackenzie Walker then claims the third position, and that in the end was made a little bit easier for him by virtue of John Kearney's little mistake coming out of the loop. Now, another fast lap potentially incoming here for Nick White. Well, no, actually, in the end, he is matched by Ravi Ramid. It all went away in the final sector, but he'd done a purple second sector on that lap. Mackenzie Walker with that slipstream down the Hanger Straight also went faster in the speed trap sector 1 than anyone else has been. John Kearney now falls behind it. Now John is 2 seconds clear of Ed Akers, and he's 4.2 ahead of Thomas Shelley in 6th. So as it stands, that tyre penalty would drop John Kearney a further 2 places. But Akers would like to catch him and overhaul him if he can on the track, not just with the penalty. And back straight they go. Side-by-side action of the road, but that was just Mackenzie Walker taking a slightly different line into Stowe than John Kearney. There is Akers turning his way through. Maybe he can salvage something out of this race after all. Looks like it's going to be 4th place anyway, but of course the risk here is that he catches Kearney, engages in a battle with him, which then allows Thomas Shelley to close in, because right now Akers would finish 4th anyway because of this time penalty. Ironically, catching Kearney isn't necessarily the right thing to do at this particular moment, but I think Ed Akers is going to be up for the fight. Won't be thinking too much like that, will he? Another slightly better lap so far being put together by Nick White. He was a 10th slower in Sector 1, but then 3/10 faster in Sector 2, and visibly, to me, that gap is coming down closer to a second now. It was nearly 1.6 at the start of the lap. But again, out of the loop, I know that we get that natural sort of concertina effect, but it does look as though Ravi Ramid's getting off the loop slightly better than Nick White. The Sector 3 time will come in at the end of the Wellington Straight, and White is, well, a few hundredths quicker. So again, gaining a 10th or so on this lap as the live super slow-mo kicks in. Didn't catch me out this time. That's a wonderful bit of technology, that. We can slow down time for you in real time as they come through Brooklands and Luffield. And that is some top quality TV broadcasting there. Good stuff. Ravi Ramid swoops through Luffield and in real time has already crossed the line, and in the end only dropped another 10th to Nick White that time. We get to bask in the brilliance that is motor racing and the home of British motorsport here, Silverstone. As the GT Academy drivers enter the final stages of their final race of the weekend. So Ramid then on a fully rubbered up track, and that's another thing that's been interesting to watch today. All this rain that we had yesterday washed the track clean of rubber completely, but that section particularly, you can really see the darker shade on the track, on the racing line, where the rubber's been laid down throughout the day. Making the track much grippier, making lap times much faster. Still not quite down into the 22s that we were last year. 23.15 still remains the fastest lap for Nick White, which is actually nearly a full second. In fact, it is a full second and a bit away from lap record pace. Out onto the back straight we go again. Less than 7 minutes remaining. Ramid and White are still engaging in a battle against the stopwatch as much as each other, and that's how hard Nick White is pushing. Big mistake through Abbey, and well, that won't have lost him quite as much time as it looked because he just kept his foot planted, but definitely a tenth or so will have gone. He gained another tenth in both the first two sectors, but it is that third sector that runs from the end of the wing pit straight until the end of the Wellington straight coming up. That's where Rammeed seems to have the edge. I don't think Nick White is going to be taking any time out of him on this lap as a result of the moment that he just had. Hold on to the brakes. The nose of the car dips aggressively as Nick White tries to carry the speed, takes a slightly tighter entry there into Brooklands. You don't mind doing that so much there because you can sacrifice exit speed. It's only a very short straight then into Luffield. Well, actually, in the third sector, he only drops a couple of tenths of a second in the end. Run to the line again with 5 3/4 minutes to go. John Kearney, by the way, continuing to be caught slightly by Ed Akers, 1.7. Well, it goes out by another 2/10 that time. It was 1.5 seconds between them, but Ed Akers with a mistake somewhere, I think, towards the end of that lap. It did look as though it was going to come down even further, that gap. All pretty well spread out, aren't they, at the sharp end of the field. The closest battle is for 13th, which is actually for 5th within the rookie class, Harry Cook and Emma Tomlinson. There is your rookie leader, Matt Shaw, and there is a problem for car number 7. That's Charlotte Lowe, who I think has had a spin at the loop. And Charlotte Lowe, will she lose a position as a result of that? Possibly not, because I think that's still Harry Cook, number 94. No, that's number... I know she's lost a lot of time then, because Harry Cook and Emma Tomlinson and Ben Cook have all gone through. So that there is number 13 of Lucy Tomlinson, who was running 16th place. Through goes Emma Tomlinson, who was engaged in a close battle with Harry Cook, but Harry also had a slow lap there. I wonder whether he was involved in some way in the Charlotte Lowe moment then, because he had a slow lap and a slow third sector, which is the part of the track where we saw Charlotte Lowe recovering from. That's a shame, because it has just sort of put that battle on ice now that was brewing up quite nicely. Still a 1.7 second gap at the front of the field. There is Harry Cook, so any obvious signs of damage to the car? Nothing really as it comes through Maggots and Beckett's that time. There is the rookie leader, Matt Shaw, turning his way back through Village and the loop. You can see there on the left-hand side of the screen the massive lead that he's got, 20 seconds the advantage. Yesterday, Matt Shaw won the class by, I think, an even bigger, no, it was about 21 seconds or so, his winning margin yesterday. The brakes, another chance to ride on board, this time with Matt Shaw. The brakes squealing in protest there as he drops into the left-hander at Brooklands, rides the curve on the way in, again diamond to the corner, so runs out wide in the middle, cuts back, takes a nibble out of the inside curve. You don't want to take too much of a nibble there. If you drop onto the grass, that will actually unsettle the car and spin up the rear wheels. So as they go across the line, Matt Shaw onto his 10th lap of the race. There will be time for 2 more laps. The leaders have long since got through. Oh, lots of understeer through Cobb's corner. And a little shake of the head there, I think, for Matt Shaw. Almost looked like he was checking the mirrors. There is nobody behind him. But perhaps he was checking. Maybe he's got some friends and family watching on from the banking there on the inside of Cobb's corner. It's always a popular place for family members to gather just outside the paddock. He was hoping that they hadn't seen that moment there for understeer through the first turn. Now as they head down into Stowe, this is another part of the circuit where that understeer can sometimes creep in. There is Ravi Rammeed. Nothing changing at the front of the field because he and Nick White are just setting almost identical lap times, lap after lap after lap. And Rammeed, 1.7 seconds the gap he's got over Nick White. It's been about that for the last 3 laps or so. Really no change in that. The brakes through the tightest section of track, the right-hand hairpin at Village, the left-hand hairpin at the Loop. Introduced, it's hard to imagine now, nearly 15 years ago that arena section was built. Great place to go and watch the racing from down there. You're always guaranteed action. And we've seen plenty of it so far today. First sector for Nick White, half a second slower than the leader. Second sector a tenth quicker. Third sector half a second slower. I think Nick White's possibly admitted defeat now. Second place will be the best it can be. 2.5 seconds the gap officially at the end of that third sector. One more lap of racing to be done. And Ravi Ramyeed looking good for the race win then. The number 17 car comes through, looking for his second win of the season. That's one more tour now of the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit to enjoy. There, Mackenzie Walker, look at the gap that he's pulled on John Kearney, but Ed Akers just hasn't ever been able to catch him. Akers on that lap was, again, half a tenth slower, so just not really gaining on the car ahead, and we join him midway through a moment at Cops Corner. Akers is only 1.3 seconds ahead of Thomas Shelley. Now, Thomas Shelley was about 6 tenths quicker than him on that lap, so Thomas Shelley having a big push here in the closing stages. Oh, the reason that moment looked bigger when we jumped on board with Ed Akers is that his rearview mirror is wobbling around all over the place, so that's not providing him with a great view rearwards, and is going to be a distraction at best, a danger at worst if that were to fall off. So let's hope it hangs on for this final lap of the race, as gives us a great idea of the G-forces involved though when you're racing at high speed around Silverstone. Out of club goes the race leader though for the final time. 2.3 seconds was his lead. It's going out again on this lap so far. And Ravi has controlled this race absolutely beautifully. John Kearney, I just missed that message on the timing screen, but John Kearney's either been warned or is being given a penalty for track limits. I think has been given a penalty is the answer. So John Kearney in 4th place if he is... yes, of course, he had that a while ago, didn't he? So he's going to lose 2 places. Akers and Shelley will both get past him. So obviously it wasn't the message that was up on the timing screen, then someone else perhaps being warned. Anyway, let's hope it's not Ravi Ramyeed. He's back right off on the second half of this final lap, hasn't he? Nick White is visibly closer to him as they head for Brooklands Corner. And they turn their way through the left-hander then out onto the right at Luffield, and it will be a second victory of the season, and the wins shared evenly here at Silverstone between Ravi Ramyeed and Nick White. Nick White won yesterday. Ravi arguably could have claimed the victory in that one, but has to settle for just the one win here on the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. He dominates race number 2 in the Ginetta GT Academy, and claims the victory by 2.2 seconds in the end over Nick White in second place. Third should be Mackenzie Walker ahead of Akers and Shelley. Now here comes Matt Shaw to come through to claim another race victory in the rookie class, as he did yesterday, and he extends his points advantage therefore in the rookies, does Matt Shaw, out of Woodcote Corner. And that is Ed Akers. What's happened to Ed Akers at the end? He's had a moment somewhere, and it was at the final couple of corners, I think, because he had a very slow final sector. And Ed Akers, that's a bit of a theme, isn't it, with Ed? Potential is there, but just putting it all together over a full race distance sometimes seems to be a challenge. And Ed Akers then will drop down into 6th place. That saves John Kearney a position, actually, because that time penalty only costs him 1 place now, whereas it looked as though it was going to be 2. And he will therefore settle into 5th at the flag. But I wonder what happened to the Ed Akers machine. And he's, well, applauding something. This is a replay, so that's John Kearney ahead of us, who, remember, had the time penalty anyway. Akers catches him through Brooklands. This is into the final turn at Luffield. Now goes to the outside and throws it all away. That was just a little bit too optimistic. And of course, to his delight, I'm sure, it's all caught by the super slow-mo camera. I mean, fully commits to the move, but the car was losing control long before he really gets into the corner. And then on the dirty side of the road, nothing he could do to save it. He locks it down, skitters off into the gravel trap, which I think is just damp enough that he didn't sink into it there. and was able to carry on. But that was an unfortunate moment at the conclusion of that race there for Nick White, for Ed Akers, not for Nick White, for Ed Akers, who has to settle for 6th position and almost lost another place to Matt Shaw on the run to the line. So Ramyeed then the winner, and in the points that will narrow things up slightly more. Century Motorsport, on what's been a very good day for Century Motorsport here at Silverstone, claims the race win. Nick White then in 2nd, Mackenzie Walker 3rd, Thomas Shelley 4th, ahead of John Kearney in 5th place, and Ed Akers, after that gravelly moment on the last corner, finishes in 6th. Matt Shaw 7th, wins the rookie class over Richard by just the 25 seconds that time, with then Livesey in 9th place, and Amy Tomlinson, the first of the Tomlinsons, completing the podium within the rookie class. Phil McGarty was next, then it was Emma Tomlinson, Harry Cook, Charlotte Lowe, then it was Lucy Tomlinson in 15th, then Cook 16th place, and Mark Elman was the one retirement after his lap 1 spin, going out onto the hanger straight. So, pretty dominant performance that from Ramyeed in a race that promised much, but in the end, Nick White just wasn't really able to take the challenge to him. It was a bit like yesterday's race, really, that White sort of led the whole way, and Ramyeed always had the potential to challenge him. It kind of felt the same that time, but Ramyeed this time able to withstand the pressure, and he is able to celebrate now with the team down in Parc Ferme. Nick White and Mackenzie Walker will join him on that overall podium, with John Kearney for some reason also parking up behind them. John shouldn't have thought he was on the podium, because even before the penalty he was only 4th. Anyway, not entirely sure. There is John getting out of the car, and why he's parked up at that end of the pit lane I don't know, but anyway, he's going to have a chat with team members and try to ascertain exactly why he got the penalty, but we can assume fairly safely, I think, that it was something to do with track limits. So Ravi Ramyeed celebrates a race victory, his 2nd of the year, and one that he didn't have to fight wheel to wheel for, but there was still a lot of pressure on that as he led the whole way after a great start from 2nd on the grid. That's really what did it, to be honest. Nick White losing lead into turn 1 and was never able then to get back into contention, and it was 3rd place at the start for John Kearney, as well as Ed Akers had a very poor getaway from the 2nd row of the grid. Tomlinsons were doing battle through the first corner as well, with a bit of a wide moment there for Amy Tomlinson, but not as wayward as this one for Mark Elman, who appeared from stage right, exited stage left, and eventually would pull over at the side of the road with presumably a damaged car. Some sideways action down at the Vale and Club sequence of corners. Matt Shaw led the entire race within the rookie class, whilst behind him, the number 47 car of Emma Tomlinson, one of the other want-to-race run rookies, had a rotation in the early stages. Matt Shaw was pushing hard. He may not have had anyone to race with, but he was still enjoying the chance to really stretch his and the car's legs around the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. Ed Akers made a last-minute challenge against John Kearney to try and get ahead of him into what would have been 4th position, but got it all wrong at Luffield and skated off into the gravel trap. It was all about Ravi Ramyeed, though. He controlled the race beautifully out in front, and despite Nick White coming at him during the middle part of the race, Ramyeed was able to bring it home for a fairly comfortable race victory, his 2nd of the season, to close back in on Nick White in the early championship standings for Ginetta GT Academy. So, drivers then down there in pit lane. Jack Mitchell there, able to chat to some of the drivers as well. He's been providing some driver tuition for our Ginetta GT Academy drivers this season. Chat to someone who was seen out racing in British GT in recent years, and maybe we'll see some of these drivers making an appearance in British GT over the course of the next few seasons. That's one of the great things really about Ginetta joining in the British GT package, because it is a natural progression. These are miniature GT cars essentially, based off the G56 that races in British GT4. And so you do well in this, you can move on perhaps into the Ginetta GT Championship and then into British GT itself. There's a natural ladder of progression there for you. We're really happy to have the Ginetta series here with us as part of this Silverstone 500 weekend, their first of 2 visits to Silverstone this year. They'll be back with us again for Donington Park at the end of May, only a couple of weeks off now before the Donington Grand Prix circuit plays host to the next rounds of the championship. Having Ramid posing for pictures as he celebrates another race victory here at Silverstone. He'll be hoping the first of many if he is to claw back some of the lost ground in the championship against Nick White. There's Nick just receiving his Michelin cap, chatting away with Mackenzie Walker about their various escapades in that race. Mackenzie having one of the more entertaining races, actually moving up the order quite nicely, having started 6th on the grid to get into the podium places. And, Mackenzie Walker was making some good moves throughout that one. And if he sticks around for the rest of the season, hopefully we'll see a bit more of that out of him as well, because he has been quick when he's raced with us in the past. And if he's back for the full season with dropped scores to come into play, he's not actually out of the championship picture at all. Drop scores can save your championship if you have a bad round or you have to miss a round. That's kind of where the idea of dropped scores came about in the first place for drivers who couldn't commit to every round of the championship. They had the option to miss a round and still be in contention for the title come season's end. We're certainly going to be hearing a lot about Ravi Ramid versus Nick White for this championship, though. Ramid can put together more weekends like this one, particularly like that second race, and he is going to be a force to be reckoned with for sure. Waiting for the drivers to make their way. I can see a couple of them wandering up the podium steps, and hopefully we will get to join them in celebration at the end of what was a hard-fought race and a hard-fought weekend. Thankfully not too much damage done to any of the cars there, given the fact there's a short turnaround before that next round of the championship. And unlike the Ginetta GT Championship, that was a real race of attrition earlier on. Of course, many of the teams that compete in this championship will actually have cars out in all 3 of the Ginetta Championships this weekend. So here we go. We do now get drivers appearing up on the podium then. And we are able to see trophies and champagne handed out. That's John Kearney getting up onto the podium, and Ravi Ramid, the overall race winner. That is not the overall podium that we're seeing just yet. They'll be coming back up again, will Ramid. And of course, John Kearney could very easily have been up there on the podium had it not been for the penalty that he incurred. So, round of applause, photographs taken, and now preparations made for our main podium. Mackenzie Walker, Nick White and Ravi Ramid, the top 3 overall in that one. And they will come through very shortly to celebrate in front of the assembled crowd of team members down below. And is that a wild Lawrence Tomlinson I can see with his back to us just underneath the podium as well. So we're getting the rookie podium now, I think. So that will be Amy Tomlinson. And Richard Just will come through 2nd place in the rookie class with the race victory, as it did yesterday, going the way of Matt Shaw with another dominant display here at Silverstone. So Matt Shaw then gets the rookie win. It was, though, Ravi Ramid who claimed the overall race victory here in the Ginetta GT Academy. And it's been a fascinating day of racing. As I said, they will be back, as will the other Ginetta Championships at Donington Park on May the 27th and 28th. We hope you've enjoyed the racing here from Silverstone. We'll see you again at Donington Park in a few weeks' time.